Well, the Huskies started off very slow in this one, but found a way to win against the Hoyas, and UConn stays at number 4. They stay at 15-2 with a 65-50 win. A lot of question marks, though, about, again, injuries. I feel like it's just a revolving door when it comes to the Huskies in this question. Azzi Fudd comes back last game against St. John's. This one, she has a little bit of injury. Seems like a tweak. Initially, right off the bat, listening to Gino's post game, says that the doctors are already looking at it. Looks like when she drove the lane, it looked like a little bit of a tweak. Gino used the after rubbing his eyes and seemed pretty frustrated. He used the nice little noise when talking about it. So he didn't seem too, I would say, worried, but at the same time, he's got to probably be very exhausted about hearing these injuries over and over again. Steve, what's your thoughts about the foot injury and obviously this game with the win over Georgetown?
Well, the injury first. I mean, I saw her walk off the court, then kind of walk down the sidelines. And when you're talking about a knee, you can tell right away. I mean, she seemed to be walking. Obviously, she was in discomfort, but there really wasn't any instability in that walk, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Um, so all you can do is hold out hope. I mean, at this point, do you literally just wean her back in and get her ready for mid to late February and then the tournament and just try to get by and position yourself the best you can going into that? I think certainly within the Big East. I mean, UConn is pretty easily said the class of the Big East, I would say. I mean, there's some good teams in there. I mean, I like the Lady Blue Jays at Creighton. I like some other teams, but really, UConn's the class in the Big East. So maybe you just muddle your way through. Okay, maybe it drops you a seed or so when you get into March Madness, but I don't know. You just can't keep rolling the dice with that. They know who they can't get back. So if they just try to walk that fine line somewhere, I think perhaps maybe it will be better for the Huskies come tournament time, both conference and March, that it will be trying to force her back. Now, again, she has to get some time. You don't want her to get. I mean, every basketball player, rhythm is very important to them. So you want to get them into the rhythm of playing. But I don't know what else Connecticut can do with this stupid rule that they have, that you have to have X number of scholarship players dressed. I mean, it puts the coaching staff, it puts the players in a bad position.
It does. It truly does. In her first game back against St. John's, we saw her with 20 minutes. Tonight in this game, we saw her with 12 minutes before leaving with the injury. I assume she probably wasn't going to go too much more over that
No,
20-minute threshold.
yeah,
So we probably saw, I would say, I'd be safe to say over half of what we were going to see of Fudd before the injury. She did shoot 1 for 2 from the field. That was all 3-pointers. She had 1 from 2 from the 3-point line. And she did make that, and then had 2 rebounds as well. 3 points, 2 rebounds for her stat line. 65-50 was this final here. Enough of Fudd. Let's talk about, obviously, Aaliyah Edwards. You really got to start with her. And I feel like again, we talked about the revolving door. That's another narrative that just continues for this UConn team. With all these injuries, with all the things that they've had to overcome, Aaliyah Edwards has certainly stepped up, and she's putting in the work. And you can really tell 6 for 11 from the field, a double-double, 17 and 11 on this one. She is really becoming the true leader, I believe, of this UConn starting five.
oh yeah. I mean, I think that was going to be evident, from the start of the year when the injuries that did occur happened. Now my gal Dorka Uhas, I thought she
She's
had a
great.
really nice, solid game. I mean, that front court. I mean, if UConn can control, the paint, I think that makes up for some of the other issues that are popping up, like turnovers. They had 23 turnovers in this one. I think that's even more frustrating to Oriema than the injuries. I mean, the injuries you can't control, turnovers you can. And again, I mean, Georgetown had its moments. I mean, they kind of came out barking, if you will, in the first quarter, but by the second half, they was more whimpering. I mean, the Huskies had the Hoyas whimpering by the second half. It really wasn't much of a game. I'll even say halfway through the second quarter on, it was pretty obvious this was going to kind of get out of hand a little bit. But I mean, I really liked the way that the Connecticut front court played. I think it set up all kind of opportunities in general. I thought Georgetown did an okay job in transition. I mean, Georgetown is just not the caliber of UConn, so it was really a matter of seeing how long they could hang in. I do like Kennedy Fauntleroy. I think she's probably the best player on the court, for Georgetown. But it's something that UConn, as long as they keep winning, uh, when you're a team that has the history and the expectations that are built into it, it's easy for people like you and I, Christian, to kind of nitpick, on different things here and there because we know how good this team can be. And based on all the interaction that we get after we post, videos about uh, the UConn team and the UConn games, I mean, I think they have high expectations too. And I have to admit, they bring us back down to earth. I mean, when I say us, not just you and I, but I think all of the people that try to cover the NCAA women's basketball scene, because I think it's easy to let your mind race ahead about March and whatever it is. I think they have really good perspective, and I think they have us focus on things that we should be focusing on here in January. So but I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that we're covering this game because I think UConn is just a story in itself. Regardless of what the score is, there's something always happening with this program this year that I think it just makes it great for great talk among fans.
No, you're absolutely right. Speaking of narratives that we've been talking about and building up and nitpicking, if you will, something that we've constantly talked about with this UConn team is turnovers. And we started to see some progression in recent games before they had to have the postponement, if you will, against DePaul. Well, it seems like that has regressed big time in this one. We saw 23 turnovers from this UConn Husky squad. They were a -4 in that margin against the Hoyas. I will say they did a good job defensively with the fouls, though. Georgetown fouled 25 times against UConn, only to the Huskies 10. They shot great from the free throw line, which I think really helped them move forward as well. They had 17 more points from the charity strike other than Georgetown. I mean, when you win by 15 and 17 of your points, 22 of your points come from the free throw line, 17 more than your opponent. That's obviously going to help a lot. But those turnovers, Steve, they're back again. What can we do to fix that?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
I mean, and I keep going back to the fact that I think that these ladies know each other better than anyone else. Their coach, and their teammates, they know what each is capable of. And I think they take chances or force passes or force, setups because they think they have that special talent that they can pull off, not a highlight reel for highlight reel sakes, but that they can pull off really nice plays, that they have that talent level. So I think it really is a matter of them trying to be too cutesy. I mean, you can accuse this is probably more about like a hockey term. If you want to play, you go into a power play in a hockey game, and you've got a lot of really talented offensive players, both at the point and down by the goal. Sometimes they make that extra pass sometimes, or they try to be too cute and they try to, force it, cross ice when they really should bring it back to the point. I think that's what UConn is doing. I think that in practice, they do things in practice, then they want to try to replicate that in the game. And you can't always do that. I mean, it's great to have that much talent, but maybe they just need to simplify things a little bit more. I don't think that Gino Auriemma has really changed his coaching style as far as in-game decisions. I mean, again, he really can't rotate much because he doesn't have the players, to establish a rotation. But I don't think that he's changing the way he's asking these players to play. Maybe he and the players just need to take a step back and say, okay, let's play. I don't want to say boring basketball, but let's just simplify things, keep it simple, get over that turnover bug. And then, as we get healthier, or then as we're getting the fundamental basic plays, then we can try to get a little more, little advance our talents a little bit more, get a little fancier.
As for the Huskies on Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern, they take on Seton Hall. Seton Hall just fell to Creighton recently in a matchup. This is a good matchup. Seton Hall is 6-2 in the Big East, including that loss to Creighton here. They're just behind in the standings with the Big East. I mean, really, just 2 games behind. We haven't seen UConn lose in the Big East yet. Villanova's sitting at 7-1, and then you have Seton Hall right behind them. Creighton's right behind Seton Hall at 6-3. We are seeing a very good Big East conference. UConn has the opportunity to still possibly go undefeated. They're almost halfway through their conference schedule already. What's your thoughts about Seton Hall moving forward in the middle of the week? And do you think this UConn team could truly go undefeated in this conference?
I truly do. And that's not a knock on teams like Seton Hall or Creighton or even the St. John's, and the Villanovas. I mean, UConn is just that much better than every team in the conference. The problem is that if you're turning the ball over, when you're facing a team like Seton Hall that is very much defense first, very aggressive, in the half court, if you're committing those turnovers, you're in essence handing points to a team like the Lady Pirates. And the same thing, I think, with Villanova. I think because they're a much more aggressive team, if they're turning the ball over, that can cause them to drop a game or drop even 2 games in the conference theoretically. But it would not shock me at all if the Huskies go undefeated, in conference play, just because they're just that much better. It's like South Carolina. Okay. They're not as good as South Carolina, but does anybody really believe that South Carolina is going to lose, in conference? No, I don't think a lot of people really believe that. The coaches are going to tell their players that they can beat anybody on any given night. But I mean, I think there are just certain teams that are elite, and other teams in the conference just need to play for that 2 seed in the conference tournament or the 3 seed in the conference tournament.
I'll go out on a limb and say I think there's a better chance that South Carolina loses in the conference rather than UConn loses in their conference, only because LSU is also in the SEC.
Well,
so I'm just
good,
going on a
good
limb
point. Yeah, good
on
point.
that one. But regardless, I believe we probably see both those teams run through their respective conferences. Let us know your thoughts in the comment description below about this UConn team. Hopefully we hear some good news about Azzi Fudd. Hopefully we continue to see some good play from this UConn Huskies squad as they continue the walk through the Big East, if you will. Let's see if they can continue and find a way to go undefeated as they head into March. Let us know your thoughts in the comment description below. Hit like and subscribe while you're there. And thanks for watching Slash Review.